Hi, welcome to this video on logarithmic functions. So the assignment on a test without a calculator is to draw this graph of the log with base square root of 2 of x, and we need to use 5 points. So when we read this assignment, we already know that there are 5 points that are going to be relatively easy to find. Otherwise, it would almost be impossible to do it on a test without a calculator. So from the assignment alone, we know that it's possible, and we just need to select the right things in order for these 5 points to be nicely drawable. Usually on the test they provide already the coordinate system. So when you see these things and you need to put some dots, you want things that are nicely readable and not something like halfway in between there, because that is not very accurate. So we're going to try and select 5 good points that we are able to draw. And we are going to do that based on our knowledge about logarithms, namely that if we see this form, log with base square root of 2 of x, that this x is equal to the square root of 2 to some power y. Why is that? Well, that follows directly from the law of exponents, or the law of logarithms. So this log square root of 2 of x equals some y, and that is where this y comes from. So this is the relation that this x in the that thing in the brackets is always equal to the base raised to the power of whatever the solution is. So now we just need to find some nice values for y. Maybe the first is, we say that y is equal to 0, then x is equal to 1. So we have the point 1, 0. X is 1, y is 0. So another point may be that we choose 2, because then the square root cancels and it's equal to 2. So we also have the point 2, 2. Another nice point is basically it's just all things that are related to 2, because those will cancel. Let's say we pick 4, then the square root cancels as well, and we are left with 2 to the 2, which is 4. So we have the point 4 for x and 4 for y. 4. And then a fourth point, square root of 2. And now you could do to the 8th, but I don't know if it's pretty. So if we just say to the negative 2, well, then this also cancels, and we are left with 1/2. So it's 1/2 for x, negative 2 for y, and the same. You can also see that this is the same, except because it's a minus sign, it's the reverse. So when we would say that x is equal to square root of 2 to negative 4, by symmetry, by analogy, we say that this is 1/4. So we have the point 1/4, negative 4. A half is pretty easy to graph. A fourth might not be so great. So maybe if we see what happens when we do square root of 2 to the 8th. So this drops, so we have 2 to the 4th, which is 16. Maybe that's better if the grid is big enough. But it just depends on the grid you get. Maybe a 4th is doable, and otherwise you just look for exponents that have something to do with the number 2 in this case, because it's about the square root. It's this square root that tells us what we need to choose, because we want to cancel that square root as much as possible. We definitely don't want to graph the square root of 2, because that would be very messy. So this square root tells us which exponents that we need to choose in order to find decent points that we can graph and don't need a calculator. This was my video. I hope you learned something, and thank you very much.